Hello, curious explorers, and welcome. Today, we're going on an incredible adventure through time to uncover the amazing story of something we use every single day. Look around you. It might be on your desk, in your living room, or even right there in your pocket. That's right, we're talking about the computer. Computers are everywhere, aren't they? We see them at school, helping our teachers. We find them at home, where we do our homework and play games. They're in offices, hospitals, and stores. And yes, that smartphone you love is a super powerful, tiny computer. But have you ever wondered where they came from? Let me tell you, a long, long time ago, computers looked nothing like the sleek screens we know today. Their story is full of clever ideas, giant machines, and brilliant people. So, buckle up, because our time machine is ready to take off. Let's travel way, way back, thousands of years ago. Imagine a world with no calculators, no phones, not even numbers written down like we have now. How did people count their sheep or trade their goods? At first, it was very simple. They used what they could find around them. Little stones, sticks, or even marks on bones. If you had 10 sheep, you might have 10 pebbles in a pouch. It worked, but as numbers got bigger, it became quite a handful. Then, a brilliant invention came along from ancient China, the abacus. Have you ever seen one? It's a wooden frame with rods and colorful beads that slide back and forth. It might look like a toy, but the abacus was a revolutionary tool. It allowed people to add and subtract large numbers much faster than just using pebbles. In a way, the abacus was the very first step towards computing. It was the great-great-great-grandfather of the computer. It showed that we could use a physical tool to help our brains solve math problems. Now, let's fast forward a few hundred years to the 1800s in England. A visionary man named Charles Babbage was dreaming big. He was a mathematician who got tired of people making small mistakes in long calculations. He thought, what if we could build a machine that does all the math for us, perfectly, every single time? This led him to design a magnificent, steam-powered machine he called the analytical engine. Imagine a huge contraption of gears, levers, and wheels, all working together like a giant, mechanical brain. Although he had detailed plans, the technology of his time wasn't advanced enough to build it completely. But his idea was so groundbreaking that Charles Babbage is now known all over the world as the father of the computer. But Babbage wasn't alone in his journey. He worked with an incredibly smart woman named Ada Lovelace. Ada was fascinated by the analytical engine. She saw that it could do more than just crunch numbers. She realized it could follow a series of instructions to perform complex tasks. She wrote down these instructions, which were like a recipe for the machine to follow. Because of this, Ada Lovelace is celebrated as the world's very first computer programmer. She wrote the first code long before the first computer was even built. What a team they were. Our time machine now jumps to the 1940s, a period of great change. This is when the dreams of Babbage and Lovelace started to become a reality. The first real, electronic computers were built. One of the most famous was called ENIAC, but this was no laptop. ENIAC was a monster. It was as big as a whole room, filled with wires, vacuum tubes, and panels. It weighed more than 30 tons, that's heavier than 5 elephants. ENIAC was a genius at math. It could perform calculations thousands of times faster than any human. But it had its quirks. It needed a whole team of people to operate it, consumed a massive amount of electricity, and the vacuum tubes inside would often burn out, needing constant replacement. It was a giant leap forward But it was clear that computers needed to get smaller and more reliable if they were ever going to be useful for everyone. The next big breakthrough came with a tiny, yet powerful invention, the transistor. Created in the late 1940s, the transistor could do the same job as the big, hot vacuum tubes in ENIAC. But it was much smaller, faster, and used far less power. This was a game changer. Thanks to transistors, computers started to shrink. They went from filling an entire room to being the size of a large cabinet or a refrigerator. This meant they were no longer just for top-secret government projects. Now, universities, large companies, and scientific labs could start using them. Computers were becoming more practical and more powerful. They were still big by our standards, but the journey towards a computer for everyone had truly begun. Let's zoom ahead to the 1970s and 1980s. This is when the magic really happened for people like you and me. The personal computer, or PC, was born. Companies with infamous names like Apple and IBM started creating computers that were small enough and affordable enough to fit on a desk at home. For the very first time, families could own their own computer. Can you imagine the excitement? Kids started learning how to type, not on a typewriter, but on a keyboard connected to a screen. They played simple but fun games with blocky graphics and created their first digital drawings using programs like Microsoft Paint. The computer was no longer just a tool for scientists. It was becoming a part of everyday life, a window to a new world of creativity and learning, right in your own home. And then, just as personal computers were becoming common, something else arrived that would connect them all together: the Internet. In the 1990s, the Internet exploded in popularity. Suddenly, computers weren't just standalone machines anymore. They could talk to each other from all corners of the globe. Think about it. With the Internet, you could send an email to a friend on the other side of the world, and it would arrive in seconds. You could look up information for a school project, read stories, share photos, and even watch videos, just like you're doing right now. The world suddenly felt much smaller and more connected, like one big global village. The Internet turned the personal computer from a useful tool into a gateway to endless information and communication. And that brings us to today. Look at the computers we have now. They are nothing short of magical. The clunky desktop boxes have transformed into sleek, ultra-thin laptops you can carry in a backpack. We have powerful tablets that are just a screen, and of course, smartphones that put a supercomputer right in our hands. Today's computers can do things that would have seemed like science fiction just a few decades ago. They can listen to our voices and answer our questions. They can recognize our faces to unlock our phones. And now, we have artificial intelligence, or AI computers, that can learn, create art, write stories, and solve problems all by themselves. Isn't that absolutely mind-blowing? So, my amazing friends, the story of the computer is a long and exciting one. It started with simple stones, and an abacus moved to the dreams of inventors like Charles Babbage and Ada. Lovelace grew into room-sized giants like ENIAC, shrank down to become personal computers, and finally connected us all through the Internet. Now, we have smart devices that help us in countless ways every day. All of this happened because people, throughout history, never stopped being curious, never stopped dreaming, and never stopped inventing. They always asked, what if? And how can we make this better? And you know what's the most exciting part? The story isn't over. It's still being written. And who knows? Maybe one day, you'll be the inventor who creates the next amazing chapter in the story of the computer. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time. If you had fun and learned something new, Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing adventures. Until next time, stay curious.